Hello and welcome back to the Common Colt Podcast, a Colts podcast with real takes, no clickbait. I'm Josh Hudgens, joined by Dan Hertzler. Dan, how's it going?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Day by day, we're waiting on the Colts to make a decision with the head coach. But hey, they also got some other big decisions coming up, and we're talking draft today.
Yeah, big fun stuff. And I know we like to give one-word reactions to kind of Colts news, and this has been kind of floating around the media for a while. And the news is that the Colts and the Texans could be entering a bidding war for the first pick in the draft. Todd McShay said it. I think a few other guys are maybe speculating this more than actually reporting it. But what's your one word to this? What do you think of this?
Well, I think it's interesting. That's the word that I have, interesting, because we don't know, okay, is this coming from the Colts camps? Is this coming from the Texans camps? Or I would guess this is coming from the Bears camps. The Bears would love nothing more than a bidding war to go on, for them to somehow get the second pick and then flip it again. So they actually are able to flip that pick twice. But the question that the Colts fans and what we've got to ask is how serious do we take this? And how much do we want to give up to beat or to win that bidding war? Like when you look at the Texans, they've got some draft capital. I know you looked into it. They got some picks here, and they got some things that they can do to get that number one pick if they want it.
Yeah, no, I like that. That is interesting. And my one word is Moneyball. I think it's one word, the title of a movie, and
I'll let you slide on it.
We're gonna make it work. And the Colts did awful last year, but they have pieces they can move. You look at the Texans; they have draft assets they can move. So, and there's some other teams in the top 10 who can make moves as well. But we're really honing on the Texans and the Colts today. So I think if there is a trade, some of these teams are just going to be playing Moneyball, and it's going to be like a movie. Yeah. I mean, this really happens. It's like, I don't know if you ever watched the movie Draft Day. I think Kevin Costner's in it. Maybe. I mean, I don't know if that's how it actually goes, but you wonder sometimes. But we're thinking about, will the Texans outbid the Colts? I look at the Texans. They pick second in the draft. They pick 12th in the draft. 5 picks in the top 73. They're only 1 pick behind the Bears. They also have 2 first-round picks in the 2024 NFL draft because of the Deshaun Watson trade. I think they could easily outbid the Colts in a trade. I don't have a question in my mind. But the question is, do they want to? Do they want to outbid the Colts? So what do you think?
Yeah, that's what we got to acknowledge. Like, if the Bears and Chicago are looking for draft picks, the Texans are number one team. They shouldn't even talk to any other team because they are loaded with draft capital. So we got to ask the question. One is, are the Bears interested in that, or will they be willing to, or do they want a player? And I think that's where the Colts got a little bit more advantage than the Texans right now. But the other question that you bring up is, are the Texans really 1 quarterback away, and do they identify one of these top prospects as far and away above the other ones? Because they're picking second. Mm-hmm. So you have to ask yourself, as a Texan fan, I'm sure they're asking themselves this question: do we really want to give up assets when we need more players, because our team really needs a lot of players, to go get that one guy when we're picking second? And if there's 2 quarterbacks that are kind of close, then you keep your picks and you just pick second. And who cares? Even if it is your division rival, even if the Colts jumps ahead of you, you don't want to give up those picks because you need players. And so I think as Colts fans, we got to acknowledge we're not sitting in the prettiest spot, but we are sitting in a good spot because I think the Texans don't want to give up too much.
Well, it's interesting. D'Amico Ryans is their head coach, and he's already commented that he wants to build a team around whoever they get as a quarterback, whether it's now in the future, Davis Mills even. And I look at that, and I know that they have 2 picks next year, and Caleb Williams is coming out. So they have the luxury a little bit of waiting, where you look at Chris Ballard, and this dude's mind, he don't got the luxury of waiting. I mean, he's got to win, and he's got to make a move today to get the Colts to win. And I've seen some people in chat come in and in comments and on Twitter and say, hey, you know what? These quarterbacks aren't worth trading up for, number one, because there's not an Andrew Luck in this draft, and there's not a Peyton Manning or a John Elway. Well, there's a reason why we highlight these guys, because they're generational prospects. At the end of the day, if you get a quarterback who's a good quarterback, and if you're the Colts and you have an opportunity to trade up for number one, Ben Roethlisberger, I'm going to use him as an example. He was a first-round pick. Now, he fell, I think, in the mid-first round, I believe.
I think he was like 10 or 11, somewhere around there,
Now, he was a great quarterback, though. So you can get a great quarterback. You don't need an all-time quarterback to win a Super Bowl if you build the team around him. So I think for the Colts, this is the opportunity for them to trade up. The Texans could easily outbid them, but I don't think the Texans want to. I think the Texans are going to want to take the best player available, get jumped, and you know what? Say, hey, we're not a quarterback away from even making the playoffs, where the Colts actually might be, maybe, possibly.
And that's where we as Colts fans, we got to really kind of make that decision. Okay, we want the number one pick. We want somebody, but at what cost?
Yeah.
And that's the thing that's really kind of looking at the Colts, staring him in the face. That's where Ballard's in a tough spot, because you don't want to be bidding against some kind of mythical team that's going to, outbid you, and you go over that and you end up selling the farm for 2-3 years, and you get this rookie quarterback who might be good, but you got no one else around him.
Yeah.
So again, it's one for a player, and then possibly a second maybe in the future that I'd be looking at. I would not be selling this farm, but at the same time, you don't want to miss out on a quarterback. So, man, this is where Chris Ballard's got to make his money. This is where, that best GM in the game, so quote unquote, he's got to prove it. And, I think the Texans, and we're hoping that the Texans are going to play smart money ball, like you said, try to get as many draft picks and not go for the home run, because if they did, the Colts are in trouble in this one. Yeah.
And one thing I want to hit on, the Colts are kind of going to be negotiating from a spot of weakness. The Bears know, hey, look, you need a quarterback. We got the first pick. Think about just 2018 season, I believe, when they drafted Quentin Nelson. They traded back with the Jets, and they got a king's ransom before the draft started, and they still took Quentin Nelson. The Jets ended up taking Sam Darnold that year, I believe it was. And they did this trade before the draft because the Colts had their quarterback. They had Andrew Luck. The Jets needed one. So, I mean, they got picks, a load of picks. I think they ended up with those second-round picks. They got, I think it was Darius Leonard. I think they got Braden Smith. So they got a bunch of pieces off of this. So the Bears are looking to get a trade like that. And sometimes when you negotiate from weakness, you have to say, hey, you know what? We're taking a hit here, but we're hoping this guy is going to be our guy. So, we'll see. Texans, if I'm a Texans fan, and if I'm a Texans, I'm hoping kind of for us to take best player available and get Caleb Williams next year, because you have the assets next year to trade up if you don't have the first pick. So that's kind of what I'm looking at.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier, we'll look at some other episodes down the road here, but there's some other teams that are out there that might be more of a threat than the Texans, even though the Texans have the best position. And so, we got to just kind of keep our ears out, keep listening to it. Lots of rumors, a lot of stuff floating around, a lot of smoke screens. We don't know if it's coming from the Bears or for whoever, but we got to say, okay, the Colts need to do something, but at what cost? And that's a legitimate question.
Yep. No, and I agree. And guys, let us know what you think. Give us your one word. Give us what your max dollar is. I want to know what it is, because maybe we're crazy. Maybe we're underselling. Maybe we're overselling. I don't know. Comment, please subscribe, share with a friend. And until next time, thanks for watching the Common Colt Podcast.